but also including 36 in Moncrief area, which is Palm Terrace Apartments, up Moncrief corridor to Washington Heights Apartments, and a couple of other areas, but their main area concentration is 45th and Moncrief.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
I'm going to show you what's already been admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 458. Are you familiar with this map and territory?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay, make sure you speak in the microphone, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay. This area that's outlined in red, what area is that in the city related to gangs?
That's PC's main area operation is concentrated in northwest Jacksonville, around 45th Street in Moncrief.
Okay. There's a, I guess a balloon out from that dot indicating 1646 West 45th Street in Hilltop Apartments.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is that a known location where PCE gang members would hang out?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then are you familiar with the 1828 Helena Street?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
All right. And are you also familiar with 1603 Gulf Forest Drive?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Besides just knowing what their territory is within the city, are you familiar with their common hangouts?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Are you familiar with the Helena Street address that I just read out to you?
Yes, I am.
Is there also another house located in close proximity to that Helena Street address?
Yes, ma'am. It's 1846 Helena Street. It's directly to the west of that address.
Okay. Are you familiar with that is problem child entertainment slang?
Yes, I am.
Is that part of your duties as a gang detective?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Can you explain how being familiar and knowing their slang helps you in your investigations?
PC members and gang members will not speak in traditional terms because of the criminal activity involved, so they will refer to items, activities, guns, stolen cars, narcotics in slang terms. And so it's important for us as investigators to know that so that we know what they're talking about.
Okay. Now going back to that location, Helena Street, and then the other one, is it on Taylor?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are those two known locations or hangouts for problem child entertainment members?
Yes, ma'am, they are.
Okay. I asked you earlier if you assisted homicide detectives in their investigation of the death of Aiden McClendon.
That's correct, I did.
Okay. I want to direct your attention to January, I believe it was 31st, if I'm not mistaken, where you served a search warrant on the house indicated on Helena Street.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay. So that would be 2 days after Aiden McClendon was killed?
Correct.
Okay. And when you served that search warrant, can you tell us, did anyone from that residence try to flee?
Yes, we had at least 1 to 2 subjects flee the residence and run to the east through the adjoining yard at 1828 Helena Street.
Okay. And were you able to track those 2 individuals that fled down?
No, ma'am. We took other subjects into custody, but those unknown subjects fled the area and were not captured.
Okay. Explain, I talked about slang. Do they call this Taylor Street location and then this Helena Street location, do they refer to it as anything? Yes,
they're commonly referred to as traps, which is a place where PC members will deal drugs out of the residence.
No, and I'm talking about that specific location. Do they refer to it as the bottom?
Yes, that area is referred to as the bottom, the Helena Street area in general. Yes, ma'am.
And when you all, that is the sheriff's office, went through the track of the location of those individuals that fled, did you find anything?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Okay, what was that?
We found a handgun, we found narcotics, and we found a rifle which had been thrown up on the carport, which was at 1828 Helena Street.
I want to focus your attention on the MAC 90.
Yes,
okay?
ma'am.
May I publish some photographs?
You may.
Showing you State's Exhibit 241. What is that a photograph of?
That's a photograph of the front of 1846 Helena Street facing south.
Is this house, or part of the structure condemned?
Yes, ma'am.
But did they still hang out there?
Yes, ma'am.
Showing you State's Exhibit 242. Is that the interior of that house on Helena Street?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Showing you State's Exhibit 243. Is that, I guess, another shot with better lighting?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Showing you State's Exhibit 244. Is that the notice of being condemned?
Yes, it is.
Showing you State's Exhibit 245. What is that?
That is 1828 Helena Street, and that's the carport of that structure. And like I said, that's just to the east of the previous residence, 1846.
And is that along the location of the subjects that fled from that area?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Showing you State's Exhibit 246. What is that?
That is the AK-47 model MAC 90 that we located on the carport roof.
State's Exhibit 247. Is that where it was found?
Yes, ma'am, that's the original location where we found it.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Can you see the number? Can you read the number for me on the blue sticker?
Exhibit 298.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 298. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Is that the same gun that you found during the search warrant that you executed at on the path of Helena Street that's pictured in 247?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. Your Honor, may I publish this to the jury?
You may.
Showing the jury State's Exhibit 247.
It's 248,
Sorry, 298.
298.
Thank you. Detective, are you familiar with the nickname for this firearm?
Yes, ma'am. It's nicknamed Little Kendra.
And within PCE, do they pay homage to those members that have died or passed away?
Yes, they do.
Are you familiar with their culture and how they pay homage to those members that have are no longer alive?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay? How do they pay homage to those that are no longer alive?
They will mention them in rap lyrics. They will wear T-shirts or RIP T-shirts to commemorate them, memorialize them on their body. They will throw up gang signs in reference to the fallen deceased gang members. We've found them in writings and numerous other social media, a lot of different ways.
Do they commonly refer to areas within their territory after those members that have died in those areas?
Yes, they do.
Are you familiar with the term K-block?
I am.
What does that mean?
K-block is a reference to Kendra Alston, who was killed in March of 2015. They refer to Hilltop and that area in Hilltop, 45th Street, as K-block.
Okay. What about Dre block?
Dre block is just another term which they will also call for K block, Kendra Alston, so they'll call it Dre block or K block.
Okay. What about Vonta land?
Vonta land is in reference to another deceased member, Javonta Robinson. I believe he was killed in 2014. That's commonly referred to as, Vonta land is commonly referred to as the Washington Heights and Secret Village area near Cleveland and Moncrief.
Your Honor, this time I don't have any further questions for Detective Boland.
All right, cross.
Good afternoon, Detective Butler.
Good afternoon, sir.
When the Mac 90 was recovered from the roof, were you the one that recovered it, or was an evidence technician?
No, sir, I observed it, but an evidence technician was called to recover it.
Okay, and that was to maintain the integrity for testing for fingerprints and DNA, is that correct?
Correct.
Was there one or two people that fled, or were you able to tell?
I'm not sure. There was at least one person that fled to the east through that yard.
I have no other questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Wright?
Detective, you indicate that these gangs, I guess, communicate through rap songs, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, so that requires you to know a little bit about rap, is that correct?
Those songs, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, you are aware that there's a tradition within rap groups where they talk about each other back and forth.
I can't speak in general, but I can speak to the songs that I'm familiar with between PCE and 187, so yes, ma'am.
But not generally about rap music.
No, I can't testify to anything else besides the actual songs that I've reviewed.
Okay. Now, you also indicate that gangs have shirts where they have members on their, I guess, dead members, and it says rest in peace, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And would you agree that within the black community, there are a lot of families who have shirts with their family members on it that say rest in peace?
I can say that not necessarily just black community, but in general, I have seen RIP T-shirts. However, it is much more prevalent through my investigations within the gang culture.
But it is not unusual outside of the gang culture, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
It's not unusual outside of the gang culture.
I don't know if it's unusual or not. I have seen it, but like I said, it's just more prevalent through my investigations. And the gangs I'm assigned, I see it much more.
I don't have any further questions.
Or redirect?
Detective, do you use the Florida statutes in order to distinguish between, let's say, a church organization that all wears the same shirt, may have rest in peace, a pastor or something, between individuals that associate with one another to where their primary activity is crime?
Yes, ma'am, we do.
So there are organizations that are legitimate that may have hand signs, may dress similarly, that may socialize more and hang out with each other more than 4 times?
Correct.
You would agree with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. The distinction between those organizations and a criminal gang is what, sir?
The criminal element.
Thank you. I don't have anything further.
All right, is this witness excused or subject to recall?
Subject to recall, Your
All
Honor.
right, Detective, you're excused from the witness stand, but are subject to recall.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may call your next witness. Do we need the court reporter?
I think so, yeah.
All right, Madam Court Reporter, you'll join us.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
I want to fast forward your attention to January 6, 2016. Are you familiar with that date?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, on that particular date, did you respond to any shooting related to Cynthia Hayes' apartment?
No, ma'am.
Okay, but was there a shooting that was related to it way down and out east?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Later on, did your investigation lead to the fact that that shooting actually started at Cynthia Hayes' house?
Overruled.
Yes, ma'am. You're correct. The investigation led to us obtaining information that the shooting began at Cynthia Hayes' home.
Okay. Now, where you responded to, you said it was in out east?
The actual shooting that we had a detective to respond to was out east. I believe it was around 1212 East 1st Street.
Okay. Did that shooting that you all actually responded to go for blocks?
Yes, ma'am. The information led us to believe that it lasted or went on approximately 3 blocks in that area.
Okay. Cynthia Hayes, are you familiar with that individual?
Yes, ma'am.
Is she a sibling of anyone in this courtroom?
Yes, ma'am. Henry Hayes.
Okay. Do you see him in court?
Yes, ma'am. Here with Mr. Hernandez.
Where is he sitting? What is he wearing?
To my left in the white shirt and the red and maroon tie. Or maroon tie.
All right. May the record reflect the witnesses identify the defendant?
The record would so reflect.
So Cynthia Hayes is Henry Hayes' sister.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I want to fast forward your attention to an incident that was located on the west side of Jacksonville on San Juan Avenue on January 24th, 2016. Do you remember that incident that I'm referring to?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, were you the lead investigator as it relates to that incident?
Initially, I don't believe anybody was called out to it, but I was assigned to it after the fact based on who was involved. Yes, ma'am. So I took over the lead on that case.
And you said, based on who was involved, who are you talking about?
One of the gang members by the name of Breon Mason. Breon Mason was the victim in that shooting.
Okay. Do you know Breon Mason's nickname?
D. Rose.
Is he at all cooperative with you or any other law enforcement officer?
No, ma'am.
Is no an understatement?
Yes, ma'am, definitely. I think his words were, even if he knew, he wouldn't tell me.
Now, Breon Mason, you said, was shot at. Was this captured on camera?
Yes, ma'am.
The location of this shooting, can you describe that for the jurors?
The incident happened, actually, it was a pretty good-sized crime scene. The victims were at an apartment complex, but after the shots began, they ran across San Juan into a shopping plaza where the Family Dollar was located and a furniture store. As the victims ran into the parking lot of the Family Dollar, the shooter continued to shoot at them as they ran through that parking lot. So businesses there were struck also.
Okay. Is that how y'all got 911 calls?
Yes, ma'am, from the people there and other people in the neighborhood that heard the shots and saw some of the things going on.
So is it safe to say that Breon Mason didn't pick up the phone and dial 911?
Correct, he did not.
Did he leave the scene?
Yes, ma'am.
And what kind of vehicle?
An Impala.
What color?
I believe it was a dark color or black Impala.
The suspect vehicle in that case, what was that? Was that captured?
Overruled.
What color was the suspect vehicle?
A gray Jeep.
Your Honor, may we approach sidebar?
You may. Court reporter?
Yes, ma'am.
Have to get started again, folks. And if while we're at sidebars like that, ladies and gentlemen, if you need to stand up and stretch, please feel free to do that. Don't feel like you have to stay in those seats. I know they can be hard. We brought extra cushions in. We do that in all the trials because the cushions that the chairs came with probably aren't sufficient for an all-day event. So those extra cushions will help, but that doesn't mean you can't stand up and stretch. And even if we're in the middle of something and y'all need to take a break that I'm not thinking is our scheduled break, all you gotta do is raise your hand and tell me. All right? You guys could tell us when you need to take a break. Understood? Very good.
In the incident located near Family Dollar, did you have other detectives from the sheriff's office go and collect the videos from those locations that showed the shooting?
Initially, video was collected by others. After I went out, I collected additional video, yes.
Okay. The video from Admiral Arms, what does that show?
That video primarily shows where the suspect vehicle was parked, where the witnesses walked from, and it shows the path that the suspect traveled as he was firing at the victims, and it shows where the victims ran. If I remember correctly, there's a portion of the video that actually shows San Juan Avenue and across.
Okay. And then Victor's, does that show the area where you can clearly see it's Breon Mason being shot at?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you see like actual smoke coming out of the building from where the bullets are hitting?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 16K that's been marked as 401 in evidence, and then 16J that has not been marked. Do you recognize these two? One from Victor's, it's a little Payless furniture store, and then Admiral Arms, the videos that you collected. Can you?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Your Honor, at this time, the state seeks to introduce 16J as the next number exhibit.
All right. Noting previous objections.
Yes, sir, if you would, please.
Yes, sir. Ms. Wright, you as well.
It's 400. Okay, this is different.
Then those exhibits will be admitted.
16J, I guess, was already 400
State's Exhibit 400
and 401.
and 401.
Your Honor, may I publish State's Exhibit 401?
You may.
State's Exhibit 401, do you recognize that to be the Admiral Arms Apartments?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Detective, I'm just going to ask you just specific questions as it relates to this video, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. All right, I'm going to pause it. It's at 1:46:51 p.m. This guy right here that you see with the red shirt and the white pants, is that Breon Mason?
Yes, ma'am.
And that girl that seems to be walking behind him, is that his girlfriend or Shatanya?
Yes, ma'am.
that individual that's off the screen and running towards them now, is that the person that was shooting?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you arrested Monteco Brown as it relates to this shooting?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the shooter running back to where the suspect car was located?
Yes, ma'am.
Stopping at 14736, that car, were you able to then track it down?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, who did it belong to?
Carjante Mitchell.
Repeat the question, Ms. Kite, I
I
apologize.
said, who did the car belong to?
And your objection is hearsay? Overruled.
The car belonged to an individual by the name of Carjante Mitchell.
Okay, is he also an associate of PCE?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, may I publish State's Exhibit 400?
You may.
Detective, I'm going to show you the video from Victor's. Is that store located directly across the street from Admiral Arms?
Yes, ma'am.
Does Victor's have pretty good video?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to pause it just at the beginning. Admiral Arms, is it in this location over here?
Yes, ma'am. Extends further to the left as well. Yes, ma'am.
All right. That person that just ran and slid, who's that?
Breon Mason.
That smoke that we saw coming out of the building, is that from the bullets hitting it?
Yes, ma'am.
Were there bullet strikes in that building when you got there to investigate this crime?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to rewind it just a moment. In a moment, are we going to see the black Impala that he flees in?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the dark-colored Impala?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the suspect vehicle going in the same direction?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have any further questions, Your Honor.
Cross.
No cross.
Ms. Wright, cross. All right, may this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Detective Howard.
Sorry, subject to recall.
Detective Howard, you're excused from the witness stand, but subject to recall, sir.
Okay.
State, call your next witness.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
I am Detective Bianca Williams with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Officer Williams, did you previously go by Officer Harness?
I did, yes, ma'am.
Where are you employed?
Right now with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office in the robbery unit
How long have you been with JSO?
for 4.5 years.
And you mentioned you're with the robbery unit now, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Been with them for 8 months.
Okay, where were you positioned previously?
I was a patrol officer in Zone 5.
What area of town does Zone 5 cover?
It's Northwest Jacksonville.
Does Northwest Jacksonville include 45th and Moncrief area?
It does, yes,
Is that
ma'am.
Hilltop area?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to direct your attention to February 2nd, 2016. Were you working that day?
Yes, I was.
A little after noon that day, were you dispatched to the address 1603 Gulf Forest Drive?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Why were you dispatched there?
In reference to a suspicious vehicle.
Did you have any other information at that time?
No, it just gave a description of the vehicle, no tag number, no other information.
What made the vehicle suspicious?
We had a resident that lived out there said that the vehicle had been parked there for a couple days.
Overruled.
Yeah, we had a resident that said that the vehicle had been parked out there for a couple days. It seemed suspicious. He didn't recognize it.
Did you respond to that call?
I did, yes, ma'am.
And what did you see when you got there?
Objection hearsay with the statement a little late.
Noted and overruled.
What did you see when you got there?
Upon arrival, I observed the vehicle backed into a parking spot.
What kind of car was it?
It was a white Toyota Corolla.
And where did you say that it was parked?
It was in a side parking spot where it's meant for vehicles for the residents to park at.
And did you say that it was pulled forward or was it backed in?
It was backed into the parking spot.
So when you got there, could you see the tag from the street?
No, ma'am. I had to exit my patrol vehicle and walk around the back of the vehicle to see the tag.
Okay, what did you do when you got there?
Upon arrival, I got out, observed the vehicle backed in. I got out of my vehicle, walked around to the back, got the tag number off of it, walked back to my car and ran the tag.
And what did you discover when you ran the tag?
That it was reported as a carjacking vehicle.
Okay. How long ago had the car been stolen?
I believe January 28th.
And were you able to discover who the car belonged to?
Yes, ma'am. The owner is Shatoya Williams.
Did a crime scene detective respond to the scene?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what did they do when they got there?
They got there, they photographed the vehicle and sealed it and had it sent to the warehouse.
Were you present when that was going on?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you secure the vehicle while that was going on?
Yes, ma'am.
So does that mean that while the crime scene detective was there, nobody else was going near or touching the car?
No, ma'am.
After the crime scene detective processed the car, what happened next?
Then it was towed to the JSO warehouse.
Your Honor, permission to publish some pictures?
You may.
Okay, Officer Williams, I'm showing you State's Exhibit 264. Do you recognize this?
Yes, ma'am.
What is this a photograph of?
That's how the car was parked when I arrived on scene.
So that this shows that the car was backed into a parking space, so not facing the road?
Correct.
Okay. Now showing you State's Exhibit 265. What is this a photograph of?
Same vehicle that was parked, just a side angle.
State's 266. What about this photo?
That is a vehicle, or a picture of the back of the vehicle that I observed.
Okay. And is that the tag that you ran?
Yes, ma'am.
State's 267. What about this photo?
That is a picture of the vehicle I observed. I made note of the tint on the vehicle as well.
Okay, I think we have a closer picture. This is State's 268. Does this show the tint on the vehicle a little better?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you notice about the tint?
It looked like it was freshly put on by someone. It didn't look professionally done.
Okay. And how dark was it?
I couldn't see through the car.
You couldn't see through it?
No, ma'am.
Okay. This is State's 269. Do you recognize this as the JSO warehouse?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that where evidence taken to process?
Yes, ma'am.
One moment, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
No further questions.
Cross. Ms. Wright, cross.
Detective Williams, did you write a report in connection with this case?
I wrote the vehicle recovery report, yes, ma'am.
And did you yourself actually speak with the resident?
Which
You
resident?
referenced the resident, gave you information. Did you actually speak with that?
No, ma'am, they
person?
were anonymous.
I don't have any further questions.
Redirect. All right, may this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, officer, excused. State, call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Detective James.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. You may have a... Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. You may have...
Good afternoon. Can you please introduce yourself to the juries?
My name is Detective Sandy K. James,
And where are you employed?
the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office.
What's your position with JSO?
I'm a crime scene detective,
How long have you been in that position?
6 years.
Tell us just what your duties are.
I respond to calls where we photograph, preserve, process, and collect evidence.
I'd like to direct your attention to the state of Florida versus Kwame Richardson and Henry Hayes. Did you have a part in that case?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Were you asked to process a particular item of evidence?
Yes, I was.
And what was that?
A Norinco Mac 90 rifle,
Okay. On what date was this Mac 90 recovered?
January 31st, 2016.
And where was it that you first came into contact with the Mac 90?
1848 Helena Drive.
Is that address near 45th and Moncrief?
Yes.
Where exactly was the Mac 90? You said the address, but where was it at the address when you
On the
found it?
roof.
On the roof? Did you take photos in this case?
I did, yes, ma'am.
Permission to publish photographs, Your Honor?
You may.
Okay. Detective James, I'm showing you states 241. Do you recognize this?
Yes, ma'am.
What is this a photograph of?
This is the house that's located at 1846 Helena Drive.
And was there a search warrant that was served on this house?
Yes, ma'am.
Showing you states 242. What is this a photo of?
This is the interior right by the front door.
States 243. Is that just another photo of the interior?
Yes, ma'am.
States 244. Is this a photograph of a condemned sticker on this house?
It is, yes, ma'am.
Okay. States 245. Can you tell me what this is a photograph of?
This is 1828, I believe, Helena?
Is this the address where you recovered the Mac 90?
Yes, ma'am.
States 246. What about this photograph?
This is the roof of that building that you just showed,
Okay. And what do you see right here on the roof?
the rifle.
Is that a closer up shot?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this a distinctive rifle?
It is.
What's distinctive about it?
It doesn't have a stock, and it's got some kind of tape on a handle.
States 248. What do you see in this photograph?
This is another view. It's down off of the roof and on the truck and on the box that I placed it in.
Okay. Showing you states 249. What can you see in this photograph?
The serial number, the model, and the caliber of
What
the
caliber
rifle.
weapon is this?
It's a 7.62 by 39.
Okay. And does that refer to the type of ammunition that it fires?
Yes, ma'am.
Showing you states 250. What is this a photograph of?
This is the round, the live round that was in the chamber of the rifle, and I'm showing you the markings on the back.
So to be clear, when you processed this weapon, you checked to see if there was ammunition inside?
Yes, ma'am.
And you found this round in the chamber?
Yes, ma'am.
Showing you states 251. What is this a photograph of?
These are the rounds that were in the magazine that was in the rifle.
How many rounds did you find in the magazine?
Oh, number wise, you want me to count them?
We'll do it this another way. Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am, you may.
I'm showing you what's previously been marked for identification as states 14P. Do you recognize this?
Yes, ma'am, this is the chambered round.
Okay. And now I'm showing you what has previously been marked for identification as states 14O. Do you recognize this?
Yes, these were the rounds in the magazine, and they number 40.
How do you recognize these exhibits?
This is my handwriting that's on the front with the count, what it is, on both of them.
And how many did you say were in the magazine?
40.
I think these already been agreed to in evidence, Your Honor, but I don't have the number.
All right, that'll be admitted as 354 or 355, correct, without objection, defense?
No objection.
All right.
Permission to publish the jury.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now showing you states 252. What is this a photograph of?
This is the serial number of that rifle.
And is that distinctive to this weapon?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Detective James, did you process those items for DNA?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. Did you have any other involvement in this case?
No, ma'am.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross?
Did you process it for fingerprints?
No, sir.
Thank you. No other questions.
All right, may this witness, or any redirect on?
No, Your Honor.
All right, may this witness be excused?
Correct, mass one redirect.
You may.
Detective James, why didn't you process these items for fingerprint?
It was too rusted.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, now may this witness be excused?
Yes, sir.
Did you, Mr. Hernandez, did you want to ask you may if you wish.
I'll bring it out of the
Okay. Ma'am, you're excused. Thank you, Detective.
Thank you.
All right, State.
State will call Shatoya Williams.
All right.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. You may have a seat.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Will you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Shatoya Williams.
Ms. Williams, I'm going to need you to lean forward a little bit and speak in the microphone so that the jury can hear you.
My name is Shatoya Williams.
That will work. Do you live here in Jacksonville?
Yes.
Have you lived here your entire life?
Yes.
As far as work, are you employed in the financial industry?
Yes.
Now, I know this is an unpleasant topic, but I want to take you back to January 28th of 2016. At that time, had you recently bought a 2014 white Toyota Corolla?
Yes.
How long had you owned that vehicle?
Maybe a little over 2 weeks.
Did it have a metal tag or still have a temporary tag on it?
It still had the paper tag on it.
And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about this later, but the vehicle, did it have any tint on the windows?
No.
So January 28th, 2016, were you pregnant at that time?
Yes, I was 8 months pregnant at that time.
Now that evening, tell me where you were.
That evening, I was at Glenmire Park down on the east side, parked in the driveway, I guess in front of the community center, when I was approached by 2 gunmen, and one of them asked me to get out my car. And,
Let me back you up just a little bit. Why were you at the park?
I was at the park because I had just got into like a domestic argument with my significant other and just needed to clear my mind. And I went to the park just to sitting there listening to music. Probably had been there maybe 30 minutes or so, maybe 45. And I was sitting there, and as I was sitting in the park, it was kind of late, and I was just sitting there in the park, and as I was getting ready just to leave, I seen a man ride by on a bicycle, and then I was sitting there, and then a gold and kind of green Lexus, kind of two-toned a little bit, rolled past me down the street, and I didn't think nothing of it because it rolled past. And then the second time it came back, it pulled in and pulled up next to me.
So this was the same Lexus that you'd seen drive by once, comes back to where you're parked and pulled up right next to you?
Yes. It pulled up next to me, and I looked over at it, and I was like, I didn't feel right, so I started to crank up my car, and then as I looked in the mirror, it was behind me, and before I could put it in reverse, the guy was snatching over my car door and was telling me to get out.
So when you say that the car was behind you, was it actually blocking your vehicle so you could not move back out from the spot where you were?
Yes, it was blocking me in. He was telling me to get out my car, and I just immediately started crying and telling me I was pregnant. Please don't hurt my baby. Please don't hurt me. And he just said he wouldn't. Just go stand over there. So I just kind of backed away as they was getting the other dude. It was two dudes. One was screaming at me asking me where the money was. And I was telling them I didn't have any. And then they started talking about the car. Proceeding like, okay, let's go. Because he was still screaming at me about the money.
So let's stop real quick there. So you're talking about two people.
Yes.
Do you know either of these people?
No.
Can you give me a description of the two people so we can differentiate between the two of them as we're talking about what happened?
Okay. The one that opened the door, he was kind of tall, kind of red, like he had hair, kind of like dreads, but his face was covered up. And the other,
You say red. I know what red means.
well,
but
light skin, fair skin. Well, he was lighter than me.
Okay.
So
And this
he was the one.
taller one.
Yes, he was the taller one. And then it was a short one. I didn't see him till I got out the car. He was my complexion, probably maybe about the same height as me, and he was holding a gun as well.
And the person who approached your car initially, was the tall one or the short one?
The tall one.
And were both of them armed with handguns?
Yes. The tall one was armed with a silver one, and the short one, he was kind of armed with like a black one.
Did you have any, in observing what was happening, did it appear that one of them was more in control of the situation than the other?
Yes, the one that opened my car door, he was more controlled.
This was the tall, light-skinned
Yes,
person?
the tall one.
All right, so they got you out of the car, and tell us what happened at that point.
After I got out of the car and I backed over to the side, backed over behind them, they were standing there. The short guy was still screaming at me, asking me where the money was. And the taller one told him, like, come on, we got to go. And then the tall one proceeded to get in my car, and then the short one proceeded to get into their car. Then the short one got out arguing with him, saying, no, you always get to drive the good cars. Let me drive this car. Let me drive this car. And he was like, well, they went to bicker back and forth about it. And then he was like, okay, well, just get in the car. And they swapped. The taller one got in their car, and the short one got in my car. And then they pulled out and drove down the street and made a left on Lambert.
So the short one was driving your white Toyota Corolla.
Yes.
The tall one drove the
Their car,
Lexus that they
their
came in.
gold Lexus, gold and green Lexus.
Both left the parking lot.
Yes.
After they left, did you report that to the police?
Yes. After I finally just realized I was still standing outside the park crying, and then when I realized, okay, you need to get it together and go ask for some help. So when I just ran to the first person house I seen with the porch light on, and I knocked open, the man opened the door. He let me in. He seen me standing there crying. He thought I was in labor at first, and I was like, no. And he let me in. He just asked me to calm down, tell him what's going on. And he called 911, and he was like, she's saying she's been robbed. And then the police got there. I told them everything that happened and what was going on. And they said they was putting out a bolo for the car.
Did you understand a bolo means they're going to say, be on the lookout for this vehicle?
Not exactly. He told me after I said it, when he said it.
All right, so were you later, after this was reported to the police, were you later contacted on February the 3rd, 2016, and asked to come down to the police memorial building?
Yes.
Did you meet with some detectives at that time?
Yes.
Now, do you remember them saying that they wanted you to review some photographs?
Yes. They had me review some photographs, and that's where I identified one of the suspects.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, sir, you may.
I'm going to show you what has previously been admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 414. I'm going to ask you to take a moment and review the materials and do you recognize what I have just shown you as the State's Exhibit 414?
Yes.
And what is that?
The pictures that they showed me when they did me through the photo lineup.
And so, do you recall them also, there was written instructions that went with it that you talked about?
Yes, he explained to me and told me that I had to sign it by what it was, by who I'm picking out, that they're not obligated to help me. They're just showing me photos.
And when you reviewed the photographs, were you able to identify anyone within those photographs?
Yes,
And the person that you identified, was it one of the two people that was involved in the taking of your Toyota Corolla?
yes,
Was it the tall one or the short one?
it was the short one.
Once you identified that person in the photograph, did you sign your name saying this is the...
Yes,
where-
they had me
person
sign it saying I
identified?
agree with the person I picked out.
May I approach you, Your Honor?
You may.
Your Honor, may I publish to the jury the photograph that was selected?
You may.
And when you signed the photograph, did you sign it with the shorter one?
Yes,
All right, were you also notified that your vehicle had been found?
yes. They called me 2 times. The first time they called me, they were asking me like, well, did your car have tint on it? And they asked, it was another, I can't remember what the other question was. And I told them no, because my car didn't have tint, I just got it. So I said, well, no. And he's like, okay. And then they called back maybe a couple hours later. It's like, well, Miss Williams, we found your car.
All right, I want to show you a couple of photographs if I can. This is what has been admitted as States 1. Is that right? No, that can't be right. I apologize, Your Honor, that can't possibly be right. This is actually States 269. The vehicle that we see backed in here, do you recognize that vehicle?
Yes. That's my car that I just got.
That's your car?
Mm-hmm.
Do you recognize this video, or this photograph, which is States 265?
Yes.
This
That's
is a
the car.
side view.
That's the side view of the car with the tint on there.
The tint, I asked you about the tint earlier. Is that the tint that was on your vehicle?
Yes, that's the tint that was on the vehicle when they found it.
And what about before, when it was in your possession? Did it have any tint on it?
No, I didn't have any.
May I approach?
You may.
Just want to be clear. What's been admitted is States Composite 344. Is this tint on your vehicle?
No.
Showing you what is States. I believe it's 264. The tag, do you recognize the tag on this vehicle?
Mm-hmm.
Whose tag is that?
That's the paper tag that the dealership issued me.
And how long had you had the vehicle?
About maybe 15 days.
I'm going to show you what it states, 266, another shot of the vehicle, close-up of the vehicle. All right, I want to ask you about the further photographs. You recognize this from the warehouse?
Yes.
Just going to flip through these. There's some. All right, this is what has been admitted as states 271. Importantly, I want to ask you and draw your attention to the area that I'm circling under the windshield wiper. Do you recognize that?
Yeah, that looks like a bullet casing on the windshield.
Was that present when it was in your possession?
No.
And this is a close-up of the same photograph?
Yes.
Casing's not coming from you?
No.
Was this the condition that your vehicle was in?
No.
Dirtier?
Yeah.
This is what I'm interested in talking to you about. This has been previously admitted as states 278. It says Bluetooth setup at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got Z820. And then we've got the one below that, real nigga KKK. Start with the Z820. Is that your Bluetooth setting?
No.
What about the one directly below it? Is that your Bluetooth setting?
No, neither one of those are mine.
And what was your Bluetooth setting?
It was set under a LG, I think B20 at the time.
You have any idea where either of these settings came from?
No.
Had anyone in your family reset this, the settings on your Bluetooth?
No, nobody was allowed to touch my radio.
Okay. Showing you what states 279 in evidence. This is inside of the front hood. Again, I've asked you a similar question. There's a shell casing located at states 280.
Yes.
That shell casing come from you?
No.
Close up 281?
Yes.
Not yours?
No.
States 282, do you even recognize the writing on the back of that shell?
No.
I'm showing you state 283, another shell casing?
Yes.
Is that yours?
No.
Same question for 284, is that yours?
No.
285.
No.
Now, in the trunk, are those your possessions?
Yes, those are. That's my fold-up chair, my umbrella.
That's 286. 287.
That's mine as well.
288, we're looking down. 289, looking a little closer. 290, another casing.
No.
Importantly, is that casing yours?
No.
You fire any guns around your car?
No.
Okay. You recognize the back of that casing in any way?
No.
292. Your Honor, I do not have any further questions for this witness.
All right, Cross?
Yes, Your Honor, may I approach the exhibit table?
Of course you may.
Your Honor, if I could have permission to approach the witness.
You may.
Good afternoon, ma'am. The prosecutor showed you State's Exhibit 414. This was the picture that you signed and identified, is that correct?
Yes.
And before you made the identification, the police officers basically read you these instructions, they're photo spread instructions,
Yes.
and you signed it, is that correct?
Yes.
And you read it, is that right?
Yes.
And besides the picture that you identified, there are 5 other pictures, is that correct?
Yes.
And the pictures look fairly similar, is that correct? The features?
Not really.
Well, they got young African-American men, correct?
Well, yes.
I mean, there's no,
African American men, yes.
and they tend to be light complected, is that correct?
No.
Medium complected?
Like my color complexion.
Okay. But they didn't make it real obvious. In other words, you had to actually make an identification, right?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have no further questions. May I return the exhibit to the table?
You may, yes, sir. Mr. Wright, any cross?
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
You indicated that there were 2 people, is that correct? I'm sorry. There were 2 people, is that correct?
Yes.
And the shorter one was concerned that he get a nicer car, is that correct?
Yes.
And that's the one you identified, is that correct?
Yes.
And let us be clear, you didn't identify either one of these individuals as the person who took the car, is that correct?
Yes.
And you indicated that the shorter person was asking you, where's the money, is that correct?
Yes.
I don't have any other questions.
Redirect.
Ms. Williams, I may have misheard this, but I want to be clear. You did identify one of the 2 people who took your car, right?
Yes.
And it was the shorter person.
Yes.
In the discussion, was it related to that the taller person always got to drive the nicer car?
Yes.
And so the shorter person was asking to drive the nicer car this time?
Yes.
And related to the photo spread, you saw 6 photographs?
Yes.
Did you know immediately when you saw that photograph that it was him?
Yes.
Didn't have to, whether you had 6, 10, 100, you knew who it was?
Yes.
That's all the questions I have.
All right, may this witness be excused? Yes, sir. All right, thank you, Ms. Williams, you're excused. All right, this is a good time to break for evening recess. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take our evening recess, so please remember my instructions about not discussing the case or looking things up. I think you are now fully committed to not do that because you're so far along in this trial, and I know you want to see it through to the end and not do anything that you shouldn't do. So I'll keep reminding you, but I can tell from your expressions you all are committed to doing that. So I'll excuse you to your respective jury rooms, and then you'll be free to go for the night.